Welcome to the Sustainable Living Podcast. Tips, tools, and tactics for living a heart-centered life that honors Mother Earth and her inhabitants. The information shared on the Sustainable Living Podcast reflects the opinions of host Marianne West, Janice Friant, and their guests. Please use your own discretion in research before applying any information to your individual situation. Now, here are your hosts, Marianne and Janice.
Hello, everyone. This is Marianne here with the Sustainable Living Podcast. How are you doing? Well, I'm here by myself again today, and I have a lot on my mind, so I hope this is not getting too rambly. If you're a new listener, this is not what we typically do. Usually, we have interviews with really interesting people. And as I said last week, we have Joel Salatin coming up, and he is so great. And Matt Duncan. And I have people in line to be interviewed, which are truly amazing. But it's me by myself again today. Oh, yeah. And of course, Janice and I are together a lot of times on the podcast. All of that is going to happen again, but not today. And I have talked in the past about burnout, and I have talked in the past about allowing ourselves to listen to our inner voices. And this is kind of what has been happening with the podcast in the last few weeks. You have noticed that we missed a couple of weeks. I mean, we let you know that we weren't coming on, but we didn't have a big show. And I have been doing quite a few solo shows. And I kept asking myself, what is going on? What is going on? Why am I doing this? And here's the deal. Well, here's a couple of deals. You know that I tend to make myself way too busy and have been kind of many-hour caretakers of my little grandson. We started the Bancroft Center of Sustainability, which I want to tell you a lot about. Maybe not today, but soon. I have this 1/3 of an acre homestead, which doesn't seem a lot to, you guys, which have 20 plus acres. But for me, doing it by myself. And I also realized that Southern California, without any rain, working with the water systems which blow up or hand watering just takes so much time. So I do envy all of you which get rain and have that lush greenness out of nowhere. Love it. Maybe love it so much because that's how I grew up. I do appreciate the sunshine, don't get me wrong. I like it warm. So back to what's happening. So I have been stuffing myself way over my capabilities probably with work. And part of that also is that I have been taking very intensive podcasting trainings from the beginning of this year. So I'm at a point right now where I know what I'm not doing right. But I'm not quite there to figure out how to change that, how to make, our sound good all the time. And I do listen to NPR shows, and then I compare our little indie podcast with NPR shows, which have tons of money behind them, which have sound engineers, which, have all of that. And that got me thinking to really talk about how often we compare ourselves with, we are the apple and there's the oranges. There's no way that we can be like an NPR podcast. Maybe someday, some money suddenly starts flowing in and we can hire a sound engineer and all of that stuff. But I wanted to take it away from the podcast and just talk about how we do that in our lives a lot. That we put expectations on ourselves which are not applicable to our situation. And I kind of wanted to ask you, do you do that? I'm sure I'm not the only one. Please tell me that I'm not the only one. And if you do it, stop right now. Don't do it anymore. It's not good. It's not healthy. Yeah, stop. And so part of us kind of being missing in action a little bit, or in as much action as we usually have been bringing to this show, I think is a little bit that the inner critic came up. This inner critic which tells us you're not good enough, this is not good enough, why are you doing it? And just from, I mean, most of you probably aren't podcasters, but if you are, you might have heard about that there was a lot of changes and in the thing which is called the stats, where you see how many people are listening. And really, in a sense, that's almost poison to look at that, because it makes you go, oh, we had 100 less people this week, or or for this episode, or, something like that. And like measure ourselves on an impact which might not be very meaningful. Because it really is not about numbers. It's more about, are we reaching anybody? Are we making a difference in anybody's life? So those are some of the thoughts which have been swirling around. And my takeaway from this is, let's not compare ourselves to something which is completely different. I think we do it a lot. I don't think I'm the only one. So speaking of the inner critic, I wanted to tell you about something else I have been kind of spending some time at. And that thing is called Steemit. I think I have mentioned it a couple of times already. It's basically a social media platform, but you can earn cryptocurrency. So Steemit.com. I still am fairly clueless about cryptocurrency. I'm learning. I do believe that it's some which is in our future. And we are working on bringing experts on which can tell you about what it's all about and why they are thinking that it's so important. That all of us who want to be more sustainable in our life and maybe more independent from the powers to be, look into this thing called cryptocurrency. That aside, one of the things I have been having fun with, it has been kind of recreational for me, is that I started a writing challenge, which is called the 5-minute free write. Now, I used to write a lot back when I was in Germany. And then I came to the US and was very insecure about my English skills and did not write at all. At one point, I had a friend who was a writer, and I showed her some of what I had written. At this point, I had been in the States for a while. I felt more confident in my language skills. And she was very dismissive about it. And I think this is an example how sometimes just one kind or unkind word can have a huge impact. And it's something for us to think about how we want to show up in the world. So that friend kind of made me put writing aside for a long time again. And I don't quite remember how I got back into it, but I ended up getting divorced when I was around 40 and went back to college. And I ended up going to a community college and started taking some writing classes and got this really positive feedback from my writing teachers, which, besides being positive, which is always good, but it freed in myself this part of me which had been wanting to write all along. And I've been doing that off and on. And one of the activities I really, really enjoy and have had groups in the past and participated in other people's groups is the art of free writing. And I say it's an art because you have to cut out, you have to shut up that inner critic which tells us that whatever we are doing is not good enough. So in a 5-minute free write, that's what we are doing right now. You get a prompt and then you just write. You set a timer for 5 minutes and you write. And even if nothing comes to mind, you just write, I don't know what to write, I don't know what to write, I don't know what to write. And pretty soon something comes out of your pen or your typing fingers, and you don't even know what it is. This is not invented by me by no means. And people like, gosh, I forgot her name, but the person who wrote The Artist Way has turned it into a therapy. Said you write every morning before you even are fully awake, 3 pages without stopping, which a lot of time gives you a deep insight what you're thinking about and what you're feeling about. So I have been doing that on Steemit for 2 weeks now, and over 35 people joined in, which I feel is fantastic. And I wanted to invite all of you to seek it out, come and write with us. And if you don't want to join Steemit, then maybe we can figure out another way that you also can be part of the challenge, that I put a prompt somewhere else. But one of the things which has come up for me doing this writing is, for one, not feeling well. And I haven't been particularly feeling well for a while. Some of you might know, or you might not, is that I had cancer in my life. I think I was 43 or 45 when I was diagnosed with cancer, and it had already been progressing quite a bit, and, went through all that stuff. But at that time, I also had a lot of other stresses in my life. So by all that stuff, I mean surgery, chemo, which I did, even though everything in me said I don't want to, but I was seeing a homeopath at the time, which said, no, for this particular cancer, you should, blah, blah, blah. Chemo is not fun. And if you can avoid it, please do. And one way to avoid it is to not get sick in the first place. And that's easier said than done, right? So a lot of the things we have been talking about in the podcast is about nutrition and stress. And what I realized is that I have been putting myself under a lot of stress again. And even stress regarding the podcast. Wanting to bring you this polished product I might not be quite capable of doing at this point. I'm not saying never. The time might come. Just at this point, I'm hoping that it's good enough, that it's not terrible, that your ears aren't hurting when you listen to us. But, it's definitely not like this wonderful storytelling, thing like Your American Life or something like that. And if you have never listened to it, it's a good show. I really like it. So that said, this critic can produce a lot of stress. And stress is a huge, huge thing which can lead to crazy diseases like cancer. And I found that I have been doing this to myself, putting myself under a lot of expectations, not only around the podcast, but around, many things in my life. It is a pattern. And it's certainly, it's a pattern I was taught when I was really young. And I have done a lot of self-discovery work, a lot of peeling back the onion work, but just saying that sometimes we just fall back into those patterns, and it's to always keep thinking about, we think we're done, but we are never really done. So that said, one of the things I did for myself is to just allow myself to be okay with whatever happens. And so having a couple of solo episodes here, this is part of the result of being okay with whatever happens. And it is really freeing. I want to say that by giving myself that permission and actually really following through with it and stopping putting more and more expectations on me, there is this underlying feeling of not having done enough is gone. And sometimes you only realize how much stress you put yourself or allowed others to put on you when it leaves. Because suddenly it's like, whoa, this is so much better. Take a minute. Really think about it. Are you doing this to yourself right now? And if so, is that thing you think which needs to be done by tomorrow or by next week, or the world is coming to an end if you're not doing this? Is it really that important? And to me, the important thing is obviously baby care. Yes, baby care. If you have a baby, we have to take care of that baby, no matter if it's convenient or not. Or, if we have people in our care or beings, animals in our care, sometimes we have to push and do whatever it is, whatever it takes, even so we might not feel like it. But sometimes we can allow ourselves the freedom to not do something. I just want to invite you all to take that freedom for yourself right now. I really do. I think we all need breaks, and so take that vacation if you can, even if it's just that evening of not doing something else, being productive. Let's not be productive for a little while. I don't know if that is good advice or not, but that's what it is, and that's where I'm at right now. And as always, we love your feedback. And as always, thank you so much for listening. And we come back with an interview soon, I promise. Take care. Bye for now.